Hello again, and welcome to APH's Access Academy. Today, part 5 of 6 in this webinar series called Textbook Transcription from Start to Finish. We're using Duxbury with NimPro. If you've been with us for this journey, you know that Deborah Krise is with us to demonstrate what we need to know. Today, we're going to explore those features for nested lists, sidebars, line number text, footnotes, and even a call out for Mathml. We are glad that you are with us today, and thank you for coming back again, Deborah.
Thank you, Amy. I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited about this one today. Okay, so for the new person, I'm Deborah Krise. I'm a Prism Braille Program Instructor Manager. I've been in the Braille world for a little over 13 years now, and I am very excited to get more people involved in using NIMAS files from the NIMAC. So let's just go ahead and get started today. So your objectives today are to be able to describe editing features for nested lists, for example, glossaries and indexes. Describe features in NIMAS generated files for sidebars, footnotes, line number text, and Mathml. So let's start with our glossaries and indexes. As most transcribers know, doing a glossary or an index can be very time consuming. This is one area where I feel like NimPro really shines because in NimPro we have our wizards. Our wizards are the ones that will do all the work for us in our selected areas. So the glossary and index wizards also apply to font changes, to the headings, and we will give you a quick reference chart now for Duxbury wizards. So in the wizards that NimPro has, you have table of contents, list, exercise, glossary, and index. So in the table of contents, it will take care of lists and headings. List, it will take care of the listed items by your selection. In exercise material, it'll take care of the list items and the paragraphs. Glossaries, it will take care of the list items and your headings. And index the same, your list items and your headings. So those wizards come in very handy for those items. So the scope of the wizard edits, what you want to know is that it will only cover your selection. The entire page, a set of pages, or a section of the document that you select in the navigation panel is what will change when you run your wizard. So make sure you're very specific about where you want that wizard run. If you select glossary and index, and you then select the glossary wizard, it's going to make the changes in your index that maybe you don't want. You just want it in your glossary. What it also means is that other text, the normal body text, paragraphs that are not directions for exercises, if you run the direction or the exercise stuff, the exercise wizard, it can get restyled as directions. So once again, very specific when you run your wizard on what you want it to cover. But if this does happen, you can then go into single key style edit functions to change it back to what you need to. Those are the shortcut keys that we've shared many times. So now for your glossary. So when you have a NIMAS file and you open it in NimPro, you want to select the area. So glossary is not in my front matter or my body matter, it's in my rear matter. You'll see my drop down box and my selections. So once I've selected rear matter and then I get my drop down, I can select glossary. So if I want to do my entire glossary, I can just select glossary, or if for this example that we'll do today, we're just going to select subheading A, and it will start at the A's. So once I get where I want to be, and I want to do all of the A's, I'm going to select Edit and select my Glossary Wizard. Once I've selected my Glossary Wizard, it will come up with options. There's 3 sections. You've got Style Cleanup. You have Strong Bold Text Cleanup. And then you also have Emphasize or Italic Text Cleanup. Under Style Cleanup section, you want to select Change Heading Styles to Centered. That will give your alphabetic reference, your letter A, a centered heading. To remove the bold out of the text, select the Glossary Wizard. In Edit, select Remove Bold Attributes. Now all glossary terms now have the bold removed. Next, you want to export the file to Duxbury by right-clicking on your A, and it will give you the selection Export. You're going to save your file as your DBT file, name it however you need to name it. I would just Glossary from NimPro. We're going to make sure we have English UAB for BANA. You want to always make sure you confirm this and click OK. So now when I open my file in Duxbury, if you notice the alphabetic reference letter A, the bold type form has been removed. You have it centered and you're ready to go. When I Control T to translate in Duxbury, you'll notice that most of the formatting has been done for you, including your guide words. However, in this case, according to formats 21.2.2, we need those 2 blank cells left between our entry word and our definition. So in Duxbury, you're going to have to enter the hard spaces. Right there, we only have 1 space and we do need 2. So to enter the hard spaces or to add the hard spaces where you need them to go to Layout, then to Character Codes, and then to Hard Space. This will allow you to enter the spaces that you need. Right here, you can see the hard space has been successfully entered. All 3 of them. Okay. Guide words will also be added and will be shown in the demonstration here in just a moment. Though NimPro will do most of the work for you, you still go through and check all the format selections, headings, heart spaces, and etc. Even though the wizards are very effective, and I would say 95%, you still, as a transcriber, want to make sure that you've gone through it step by step. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's demonstrate how to do what we just showed you. We'll walk through it step by step together. So I have opened up here my NimPro file, and I am going to select rear matter. I'm going to select my glossary, and just to show you section A, I'm going to click on that. So now I've got my whole glossary here. What I want to do is I want to go up to Edit. I want to do the Glossary Wizard. And once again, because I'm in A, it's going to apply to all of section A. If I only wanted it to apply to part of section, then I would have highlighted that selection. So as we spoke of before, we're going to do style cleanup first. We are going to select change heading styles to center. Next, we are going to click OK. Got my A over there. That's going to center that. I'm going to remove my bold attribute. And then your next selection is if you want to remove your italic attributes. This file actually didn't have any or any that I saw of, but what I would do if you're not sure and you have not had time to go through the whole thing, go ahead and take those out. Click OK. Now, since I need to move this over to Duxbury to finish my transcription, I'm going to right click on A. There I have export selected sections. I'm going to title it. I've got it as a DBT file. I'm going to click save. I want to check and make sure, always make sure your DBT template is at English UAB and that it didn't get moved to something crazy. Now it's processing my file. So then I want to go to my Duxbury. I'm going to open Duxbury, find my file. I'm going to open my file that we have, glossary. I know I named the one glossary example, but that was just so I could show you the steps. The one that I prepared earlier is glossary. Okay. You can notice the alphabetical reference is centered, but I want to view my code so I can make sure. So my A is centered. I've got glossary, guide words. Looks like everything's good. The bold's been removed. And when I Control T, which is my Duxbury commands for translate, you're going to notice once again, most of that formatting has been done for us. Looks pretty good, but once again, I only have the single space for my guide words. So I need to go back and put those in. So to put in my hard spaces, I'm going to go to, I want to go to my area first. Layout. Character codes, hard space. See, I added the hard space there. Always want to make sure you are where you are wanting to be. So. Absolute temperature scale is where I want to be. I want that space. So once again, our working area is layout. We're going to select character code, hard space. I want to do this again. And guide word absolute 0, layout, character code, hard space. And then we can do it again after acceptor, just so you can see where we're at. Character codes, hard space. So I have not done the rest of the file because this could go on for hours changing this. But once again, NimPro over to Duxbury did a lot of the work. So all you're doing now is hard spaces. I'm going to show you the translation. Oops, Control T. And as you can see now, we've got our 2 spaces exactly where we need them to be. Any questions on hard spaces or taking and running the Glossary Wizard?
Deb, I'm not sure if this is specific to that or if it was related to something else, but there's another, there was a question that's just how would I make sure that the print pages are recognized? Do you know what that's related to?
Not sure. I might need a little bit more detail.
Yeah, Christy, can you provide a little more context for that question?
I don't believe in my NimPro file that I had print pages on this particular one. But if you've already done that in your earlier edits for your entire file, let's see, page number references, then you should, I'm not sure what the purpose for a hard space is. Can you explain it to us? It's a BANA format. It is required between the glossary term and the definition. So that's a hard space. That's just putting in, if I was on the Perkins, that'd just be putting in 2 space bar moves. I have trouble recognizing the print pages. Is there a way to do it universally? Page number reference. Your page reference numbers under your edit. Page references to begin with page. That's just up in your edit menu. And you can run this through your entire document.
And one other question was, what is the difference between using the drop down for a hard space versus just typing in a space where you need it? Is there a difference there?
There is a difference there. Using your space bar gives you a different code than if you see, we'll go ahead and do an example here. So I've got my codes up, and remember Duxbury works with the codes so that when I Control T to translate, it's going to read what that's going to do. So if I take this hard space out of my very first one, absolute temperature scale, and I just put in a space bar, let's see what we get. You don't get it. See, there's no extra space there. What Duxbury is doing is trying to find the code. And by adding that code, which is this, you just see the little parameters, and I believe it's an apostrophe. I know this is hard for you guys to see, and I've always had a problem with it too. It's just like when someone writes computer code, I guess, would be the way to explain it. I don't even pretend to understand how it works. I just know if I use certain codes, it will translate it the way I want it to. And that we didn't take the space out. So once again, if I just leave my A where it was, I'm only going to have 1 space between my guide word, or not my guide word, but between my term and my definition. And per Braille formats, I need 2 spaces. Using your space bar is not going to give you that effect. So if I go to layout, character codes, hard space, then when I translate, I'm going to get those 2 blank spaces that I need. Hope that is helpful. Okay. once again, some of your headings, you know, your hard spaces don't come through. Just, you still need to check everything. As we all know, the software has been amazing. It's made our jobs so much easier, but you still have to be the transcriber and check everything that the software does to make sure that it's doing exactly what you want. Okay, so glossaries, which are always fun, and so are indexes. We saw how NimPro can do a lot of that work for you, so you're not having to format it. Once again, we're not working in Word today. We're not using Swift. I'm just showing you how to use different edit parts in NimPro to do things such as the glossary. So now we're going to do that in the index. What we're doing today is just knowing how to use NimPro to get some of the work done if you're going to trade straight into Duxbury. Okay. So on index headings, the one aspect of creating a properly formatted index in Braille is changing the generic heading above the index into centered index headings. Therefore, the Index Wizard provides that option for you. The Index Wizard changes items in the simple list style into the index style. When I talk about the style, I'm talking about how we're required to place, space, or blank line an item. So the NimPro Index Wizard features, these are the things that it will take care of. It offers the options to fix auto numbering problems and remap bold and italic text. It also allows you the option to restyle the heading that precedes the index as an index heading. Before you use the Index Wizard, you need to identify which sections or pages of your document contain the index. Make sure when you're applying a wizard, you are applying it to the correct section, or you will come up with something kind of funny. So you want to select only the section or those pages in NimPro's navigation pane before you start the wizard. Once again, if not, remember you've always saved one file so that you can go back and change. There is no undo button. Make sure you're saving constantly. So if you choose the option to restyle the index heading, any subheadings in that index will receive the same treatment. So you're going to open your file in NimPro. You're going to select rear matter. You are going to go to your index and then select which part of your index you want to work in. Today, we're going to work in section H. When you open it up, it will take you to H. You're going to select edit. Whoops, I'm sorry. You're going to select edit and you're going to choose your index wizard. Okay, the index wizard once again gives you 4 parts. It gives you style cleanup, so it allows you to change your centered heading, list numbering, leave auto numbering, remove all the auto numbering, so on. It will allow you to leave the bold or take it out, leave the italic or take it out. So want to start with your style cleanup and select changing styles to center, change list styles to index. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck here. Okay, so now we have H is centered and a list 1, which is what you would have seen when you first opened this over here. Now you're going to have index 1, and that is going to do your BANA format for index. Okay. From this point, you're going to right click on the H and then export your selected sections. Save your DBT file. Select your UEB BANA template. I know I bring this up with every practice, everything, but it is so easy for that to get moved. And when you open it, you will have utter confusion about what you're supposed to be doing. It is one of the mistakes I see very, very often. Open your file in Duxbury. Should look very similar to this. Make sure you have your code so you can make sure everything's in place. So once again, there are changes you may have to make to get your items to translate the way they need to. So I've got my centered heading, I've got my list as they should be, my runovers where they should be. Looks pretty good there. So let's go ahead and demo what we just did so we can do it one more time. Maybe it seems a little redundant, but it really is the smart thing to do is to practice these. So I'm back in my NimPro file. I'm going to select rear matter. I'm going to go down and select my index, and I'm going to go to section H. Going to go up to edit. I'm going to select my index wizard, and here's where I make my changes. So I'm going to change heading style to centered, change list styled to index, move auto numbering, let's see, click OK. You can see over here where I have index 1, index 2. It's basically just a nested list, but because it's in the index, it's following formats for index. NimPro doesn't necessarily do a nested list, but as we said before, we've got the areas where you can do your keys and change something from a list 1 to a list 2 as necessary while in NimPro. All right, going to go back over here to H, and I'm going to export my selected sections. This is an index. Okay, if I could spell example, let's see what we got here. Okay, make sure I got my English UEB BANA. Making sure that I'm following all BANA formats. I'm now going to open my DXP file or DXP file index. I want to view my codes, make sure it all came over pretty clean. You can see I have a centered heading. And we have headings here. Index list, T. So what it's doing is giving me where my line should start, whether it's in cell 1, cell 3, or cell 5, whether it is run over, where my run over needs to be. Looks like all of these have a run over start in 1 or 3 and run over at 5. So running the wizard takes care of a lot of the work if you're going straight from NIMAS to NimPro into working in Duxbury print. If you're not going to be working in Swift and you're not going to be working in Word, like we said, worst case scenario, my Word files, my Microsoft Word isn't working, or my BANA template's lost, or Swift is not working. I'm waiting on technical help, but I have a deadline to meet. So I can still use NimPro to do some of my work, go into Duxbury, use my layout to apply styles, different translation codes, math codes, line codes, skip lines, suppress skip lines. You have all the codes and the tools within Duxbury to work in Duxbury. You don't have to. Most people do work in Swift and Word. But if worst case scenario, to know where the items are, to be able to do a transcription while working with NimPro and Duxbury is extremely important. Also knowing that you can make subtle changes in NimPro before you even bring it over to Duxbury, especially using the wizards, will save you time and energy. So does anybody have any questions about indexes? Okay, I don't think that we have any questions. Concerning indexes or using that.
I did just want to interject here. There was a question about if you're not an accessible media producer that's getting files from the NIMAC currently, is there an option to access some NIMAS files to practice? And I did want to just let folks know, I put in the chat a link out to the National Ames Center website where you can actually download a couple of NIMAS file exemplars that are kind of for some short books. One of them is like a history of like the Great Depression, and another is a small reader about wolves, and so they're relatively short, but I think they do contain most of the elements that you would be looking at when you're doing a transcription. And so I would just invite folks to take a look at the exemplars that are on that site. You can download them and use them in your software and try it out. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nicole. Also, I was seeing some questions in there about formatting. This series is more, the way I understand it, is more about understanding the use of the software, NimPro, and how it works, translating a NIMAS file and making it workable in Duxbury. Format training, though, is for any transcriber doing full transcriptions of books and even TVIs in the classrooms. I was taught early on that for the Braille reader, it's about the spacing and the blank lines and doing things repetitively. If I have a blank line because it's a centered heading, then all centered headings have a blank line. But BANA is the one that does the formats. There's not, the NLS lesson book for certification, literary certification, does a better job than they did before. This newer certification has a whole lot more information on formatting than the original certification did. But if you need to learn formatting, I would definitely go to the BANA website, and they have all the Braille code books available there. That would be the best place to start. And don't be too intimidated. The formats book is broke down into sections, indexes, exercises, lists, headings, title pages, front matter, back matter, transcribers notes. So it's a very extensive book, but it's a reference book. It's not something you have to know all the time. I do not answer a question in class with my transcribers unless I have my reference book in front of me. Hope that helps. All righty. So let's get on to sidebars. Sidebars have become very extensive in textbooks these days. So knowing how to work with those in NimPro and in Duxbury will be very helpful. Okay. So what I'm going to show you in NimPro is a section that we're going to use to go over sidebars. When you open it in NimPro, the text has a light gray background. And what that does, that is just a simple cue to let the reader know, to let the person know that it's not part of the main flow of text, even though it's just in a very, NimPro brings everything down just in a line, in a straight list. So to tell if something's a sidebar or not is hard because it's not indented or off to the left. So if it was in the sidebar, it is going to have a light gray background right here. So looks like on this one, the main part of the book would have been a chemistry picture in the title. You would have had AP chapter outline, possibly off to the left, and AP big ideas is also notated in the gray, so you know that it's a sidebar. We will then export the file to Duxbury to check it out, see what needs to be adjusted. I'm going to open the file in Duxbury, and here we can change any of the codes if we need. Then we can translate the file to Braille to make sure we have it correct. After translating, we'll have our sidebar complete with a centered heading in the corrected list with the blank lines before and after. Okay, so let's walk through that example. We are going to go to our NimPro file. We are going to go in our body matter to chapter 1. Okay, this one looks a little bit different. We've talked about this before when you start or do your first wizards on your book. I know I've seen people talk about Duxbury moves so slow, but in your wizard, with your picture wizard, if you hide all your pictures, you're going to get a cleaner, quicker moving NimPro file as you move forward. This one, I have got them all out so that we can see a little bit better what we have, what we need. You can see that the NIMAS file opened in NimPro, correct heading 1. We've got a caption, a byline, sidebar heading, a list, sidebar heading, straight into body text. So what we want to do now, of course, is go click on our chapter 1 chemistry again, because we want to export just this chapter 1 over to Duxbury to work in right now. Save your file name and save your DBT file. Check our template, it's correct. Now as it processes, I will then open my Duxbury file that I need, that I just saved, to be my sidebar. I'm going to view my codes. And you can see we've got our reference page number, we've got our heading as centered, got our caption, got an attribute for our caption, AP chapter outline. Looks like we've got our blank lines where they need to be, straight into body text. So let's go ahead and translate and see how well this cleaned up. So right there, I have done no formatting. I have done no formatting other than I have now taken the NIMAS file over to NimPro, and I've run my main wizards, and now I'm running my section wizards. This one just happens to be indexes. So before I even get to Duxbury, I have a wizard who has done the correct indentation patterns, the correct blank lines. You see the blank lines after my centered heading, see the blank line before and after my list. We've got, let's see, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we're in cell 7. So you're not having to do as much as the transcription work because you're letting the NimPro do it for you before you even get to Duxbury. Then as the transcriber, for you to know what codes to use, you have to know what format something needs to be in. Does it need to be, does the type form need to be applied? Is that a heading 1, a heading 2, or a heading 3? Is this a nested list? If it is a nested list, how deep is the nested list? Things like that. So knowing the formats allows you to know what code or layout that you need to apply to that section. Any questions on doing a sidebar? No, we're quiet today. That's okay. That is okay. Okay, reference notes. So in NimPro, you'll see that reference notes are in blue text. That's how they're identified, just as the shading below showed you that that is a sidebar. The blue text identifies footnote references. So a footnote reference is a symbol. It could be a number, asterisk, dagger, that appear usually like a superscript after a word or a sentence, which means we're going to have a note on that item. So when I open up NimPro, if there is a reference note, it is going to be highlighted in that blue. That doesn't always happen. As you can see down here, we have one that was not highlighted in blue. But more times than not, it is. There we go. That's our blue one. That's what it's applying to. And then it did not capture the other one. So footnote references are displayed in blue font to highlight them. Not all NIMAS documents have footnote numbers displayed as superscript. Not all have them highlighted, or at least not every one. So it says transcriber, it is still up to you once you get to Duxbury to make sure that you catch those and format them correctly. Okay. So here we have a note that was indicated by the text. I believe it's that one. And there. So for when we get to the demonstration, you'll see that we just opened it here for this example. But you can also see that the symbol for my dagger has come over correctly in translation. Okay. What we have to do though is there's going to be some adjustments needed for this note. So in the print screen, you're going to want to make the adjustments necessary by using your layouts. So one of the first things that we're going to have to do is we'll need to change the format from the note from body text to a 1-3. Super simple. Make sure your cursor is in front of top body text. You delete it right there. Next, with your cursor in front of the dagger, go to layout, apply styles, and you'll need to choose the format that you want. So layout where we do everything, apply styles where we do everything. Your numbered format should be at the very beginning. Okay, so at this point, you'll need to put your cursor in front of the 1-3 format code and hit enter. This will create your blank line. You could have also done a code to insert a blank line, but it's just as fast. This is one where you can hit the enter, not the space, but the enter, and it'll create your blank line. You can see the little code here. You'll then need to put your cursor in front of the blank line and click layout. Go to apply layout, apply styles. We want to put in that note separation line. That will apply the line before the note. Then when translated, you will get your note separation line, your dagger, and your note. So let's go ahead and do an example of this one real quick. I'm going to pull up my Duxbury file. I am going to view my code. Okay, so you can see where our dagger came over right here. That's good news. We got the dagger over, but the actual note could use a little bit of work. It's not formatted quite correctly. So you need to go down to where the note is, down here where it says body text, and we've got our codes showing our notes so that it'll be transcribed correctly into Braille. So first thing we want to change is the format from body text to a 1-3, because if I have the word body text, it's going to do it in a 3-1. So I put my cursor in front of that. I select delete. So now that my cursor is in front of the dagger, I'm going to go back up to my main tab, which is layout. I'm going to go to apply styles. And as you can see, like I said, the numbers are at the top. Your most common number styles are at the top. You get your 3-1s, your 3-5s, your 1-3s, and so on. I'm going to select my 1-3 format because that is the correct format for a note. So you can see it has put the 1-3 at the beginning and the end of my section. Now the other thing I've got to do is I've got to get a blank line in here so that I can use my note separation line. So I'm going to put my cursor in front of my 1-3. I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard, and now I have the blank line code. Don't forget, cursor placement is very important in dealing with Duxbury codes. So as I go in front of my blank line code, I'm going to go back up to layout. So I style. I don't want to be clear up there. You can scroll down to it, or I can simply type in O. And there you see note separation line. So it's now going to put the code for note separation line right before where my cursor was, right here in front of my blank line. Whoops, I typed the wrong code. Oh, good time. Layout, apply style. I want note separation line. There we go. No big deal. Do this all the time. It's easy to hit the wrong one. I'm going to enter that. I've got my note separation line, my blank line, and as always, we are going to hit Control T and see if we did it right. We did. We've got our note separation line as required by formats between the body text and the note that was listed within the main paragraph. Do we have any questions on that? There's not really anything in NimPro for this. The only thing NimPro does is it highlights where those areas are and it brings it over into the correct transcription. You really don't have any editing to do in NimPro to get these taken care of. All of that editing can be done within Duxbury.
Deborah, this is Leanne. Do you know if JAWS reads NimPro files?
I do not.
Okay. And what does NimPro do with the blue highlighted items, such as figure 17.2, which looks
That's
like a
just
webinar link?
Yeah, it's really not. It's not a webinar link. What it is just for sighted transcribers. It just lets us know that there's a note there. And it's referencing that. So the dagger is referencing 17.4. But as far as JAWS, I'd be more than happy to ask the accessibility director at the Tennessee School for the Blind. Does JAWS read NimPro files? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I would be more than happy to ask Alan about that. He's very good with accessibility. I am not as much into the accessibility end of it. The people that I work with are all sighted transcribers. So I am more into formats and making sure the books are done correctly for the student. Anyone else? Okay.
I'm going to ask a quick question. It seems that the slides that were given for this presentation, were they updated or changed? They're saying some things were not included in the presentation slides.
Yes, so Elizabeth sent me the final file after we added some examples. So this one has been resubmitted, so hopefully we can have that information for you at 6.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, there was just, I didn't feel like we covered the examples very good. So we went into more detail after everybody at the program has been my guinea pig. So after the class, and there were just too many questions, so we added some more. So I hope that helped. Okay, next for line number text, which could also be poetry. Okay, so in a lot of textbooks, especially the English language arts, if there's poetry or let's say Romeo and Juliet, there'll be line numbers that are intervals in the text. The line numbers in a NIMAS file, just as the reference notes were blue, if it is a line number, it's displayed in red. The tagging in Duxbury for line numbers is it's a line, num, get it? It's in the tag right there. It's not very far. NIMAS doesn't do anything with line numbering. You're not going to be able to edit anything with that. But Duxbury has a code that you can, or a style that you can use to make sure it came over correct. And if it didn't, it will show you where to, it will allow you to apply that style to it. So I want to show you just a quick example of a line number text in Duxbury. Okay. Okay, so this is a very big selection. I'm going to go ahead and move this down, just so you might be able to see it a little bit better. Really, all I wanted to do was show you right here without the codes. This is what we have. This is what was in print. It was just brought directly over. So I'm going to view my codes. If I don't have line numbered, because like you heard in a NIMAS file, it's in red, so it puts that code when it brings it over to Duxbury. If I don't have that code and I go to transcribe it, you've got your number over here where it, according to formats, that's not where it belongs. So I want my line number. And to get a line number layout to apply in Duxbury, we go where we always go, layout, apply style. Very simple. When you look in here, right here, line number. Click OK. And then you test it out by translating it over. And now this line number is where it's supposed to be, with the amount of space between the end of the text and the line number. There's nothing really you can do in NimPro except if you're scrolling through and you see a line numbered area, or what looks like should be line numbered area, and there is nothing in red, then you know you're going to have some extra work in Duxbury to do. So that's where I would notate on my big pad of paper, like I do as I transcribe something, any questions or areas I need to go back and look at. But Duxbury, NimPro really, the NIMAS files, when opened in NimPro, the NIMAS files are typically pretty good about having the line numbering in there. Any questions about line numbers? Okay, so this was a little add in too, just because there was no example for this, and I felt as more that we did it, just telling you that it should say line num doesn't really explain it. It was probably easier to see it.
So there's one question here, Deb. If the line number is in red, how does JAWS handle it?
Once again, I am not a JAWS user. I have never used it. But the line number, my guess is JAWS, and I'm guessing, so anybody who knows more, let me know. I don't know how JAWS reads a NIMAS file once it's been converted into NimPro. Once I use NimPro to open a NIMAS file, I'm really not sure how JAWS reads that, but I'm going to reach out to Alan because I don't use JAWS. I haven't used JAWS. I'm not. That's just not my area.
Okay, well, maybe we can get some of those answers for the last session, and if you're able to get any clarification on JAWS with NimPro or with these other issues,
Yeah, because
that'd be great.
I've never used JAWS because I'm not in a classroom. Once again, in my position, I just provide the Braille and the large print at the middleman level
Mhm.
and work with mostly sighted people, but these are things I can definitely ask school.
Great. Okay, well, if we're ready to move along, I would like to take a few moments and just introduce Mathml to folks. Deb's going to talk a little bit about Duxbury and Mathml, but to kind of lay the groundwork, I just wanted to give a little bit of background information. And Mathml is actually a special markup that may or may not be included in a NIMAS file to indicate math or scientific notation. And so basically, Deb has talked a lot about different tags like the line number tag. And so you're probably familiar with some of the tags that you'll see in a NIMAS file for paragraphs or lists or page numbers. And so Mathml is very similar, but instead of being those kinds of tags, it includes tags for things like numerator and denominator and square root and that kind of thing. And so basically it's simply a matter of marking up the XML file in a way that if your computer software can understand the Mathml markup, you can automatically generate an accessible format. So for example, if you have Mathml in a web page and your browser understands Mathml, you could actually have that content either display or read out loud just based on the Mathml. So it's a very powerful and useful tool, but where we're at currently with Mathml is that support for it is still very limited. So in terms of NIMAS, again, I mentioned that it's optional. And what I mean by that is that it's not a requirement of the NIMAS specification. So if a customer is purchasing new textbooks at the district or state level, and in their contract language, they say, we want you to send NIMAS and we want you to include Mathml. If it's a math book, then we will get files that include Mathml. If they don't put that in there, we will probably get the math as images. Historically, printed textbooks include equations and and scientific notation as images. And as we all know, images are inherently inaccessible. You can't feed an image through Braille translation software and have it tell you what it is or generate the correct math. And so Mathml can be really beneficial to produce accessible formats. But if you are actually assigned a file in the NIMAC, that file may or may not include Mathml. And so one of the things that we'll look at in the last session is how you can tell whether a file includes Mathml, and also some of the options for downloading the file. Because one of the important things about the way the NIMAC works is that if we receive a file that includes Mathml, we still require that the publisher include the images in the file set just in case somebody is using software that can't understand Mathml. We want there to be a fallback option, and that's what we actually call them, fallback images in that file set. So this also provides us some flexibility with the online system, as it allows us to be able to provide you an option to download the files with the images instead of the Mathml. So we'll also talk about that, the no Mathml download option, and what that looks like in the system as well. So that's kind of basically it in terms of a little bit of background on that. From just talking with Deb a little bit, it sounds like Duxbury does not have really great support for Mathml yet, that there is some support in there for Mathml 3, but we do hope that as the software develops and moves forward, that the support for Mathml will just get better and better over time. So again, more about this in the next session, but I just wanted to kind of lay a little bit of groundwork for you in terms of what Mathml is, and that you might see it in a file. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicole. So as Nicole was saying, when you are downloading a NIMAS file, you'll absolutely have the selection. So if whatever software, translation software you're working with doesn't do well with the Mathml markup, you still can download it and you will still get those images necessary. As I was working through some examples for Mathml for today's thing, for today's training, I was finding that I was doing so much work in Duxbury that I was concerned that there may be too many questions. To be honest with you, the transference from the NIMAS file to the NimPro into Duxbury is just not clean enough yet. I'm not downplaying it's so much better than what we've had in the past, and it does do a lot. But if you're not a Duxbury code user and used to using the Duxbury codes, me showing examples today probably would have been more confusing than helpful. Just know that NimPro from where it was even just 9 months ago to today, it is getting better every day. You can still use this. You'll just have the images instead and have to do your transcription from the image of the scientific or mathematical expressions. So not that I don't want to demonstrate an example of how to do that. I just think unless you have worked in Duxbury for a long time and you're really comfortable in Duxbury codes, I think you're going to create more trouble for yourself. But once again, it's there, it's getting there, it's getting better. It has improved immensely. And I think just knowing that it's available if you want to download it, and knowing that you can process it through, just be aware of the work that you're going to be required to do in Duxbury.
Just to kind of chime in on that, I am also not a transcriber, and so I don't I can't tell you how well this would work, but one of the things that you might try if you're interested in seeing Mathml converted either to UEB Math or to NIMAC Math is you could do a little bit of experimenting with running the NIMAS file through Braille Blaster and then putting in Duxbury, because Braille Blaster, it's not perfect, but Braille Blaster does have support to generate either UEB Math or NIMAC Math, and just as an aside, you know, APH is really interested in feedback on how well that is working. So any insights that you get from that, or you know, if you like it, you think, oh, hey, this is really great, it was really beneficial, or you know, it seems a little glitchy, we'd be really interested in your feedback on that in terms of the conversion in Braille Blaster.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, Nicole. And I think anybody who maybe works in transcription who has recently done a NIMAS file with the Mathml, run it through NimPro and Duxbury. Hey, if you're a pro and you know where the glitches are, I'm always looking for instructors to go through it. But I like the idea, if you're having a problem, don't ever forget, even though we're doing a NimPro class, don't ever forget about Braille Blaster out there as a second option. As a transcriber or someone who's meeting deadlines, know your tools, know what's available. And if you're not using that tool every day, at least sharpen them every once in a while so that you know that that's available. Because everybody knows software can get glitchy, and you have to be flexible and adaptable.
So there was one question that said, can you just show us what tags are imported? Do you happen to have a file that has Mathml where you could just kind of show how the tags are imported?
I might have one in here today. Let me double check. I don't think I have the math NIMAS file in here. I just have the ELA file. But I can definitely have that on day 6.
Great.
Just to show the red tag. And I'm anxious to hear about the JAWS to see how that works. So one thing that I didn't hear, I'm not sure if Nicole said this or not, but in Mathml, it's going to specify 2 different forms of markup, or two distinct different uses, right? So the content markup will describe mathematical expressions in a manner that allows math to be evaluated by an automated process. But for our purpose, textbooks and related publications, the more important form of Mathml is presentation markup, which describes the math in a manner, in a way that allows it to be laid out on a page correctly. That's the big difference there. So NimPro will read the Mathml and translates the mathematic markups into elements of NimPro's own internal document structure. NimPro is able to do a reasonable representation on the screen of the 2-dimensional expression typical in Mathml. You can scan the math, you can work over it with your keyboard arrow keys, and even do some touch-up edits if required. So that's as far as I went into the Mathml today. I have a NIMAS file, I have several math files, and I can at least show you an example of what the markup looks like on the screen. I just wouldn't take it much further than that unless I can find something very simple that comes over clean. I can look a little bit further for that. Does anybody have any questions? And yeah, Susan, I will show you which tags are imported. That's no problem. We'll do that in 6. Anybody else? Well, thank you all for coming today. That was amazing. Let me see what we've got.
Well, we are thankful for you, Deborah, again, just walking us through all the steps of the things that we learned about today. It is day 5 of 6, so that means we come back together on Thursday, June 23rd for our Q&A, and we hope that you will come back. We are generating those questions that we know that you want to have answered, and we will carefully go over those things on Thursday for session 6.